Some deaths come quietly, some come with warning, whispers, or shadows in the corner of the room. But every so often, right before a person takes their final breath, something else steps in. A vision, a visitor, a message. Doctors call these pre-death experiences. Families call them moments of clarity, and hospice nurses, well, they've seen enough to stop calling them anything other than real. Tonight, we open the first chapter of our journey into the unknown, the days before death, the threshold where life begins to loosen and something on the other side starts to call your name. I'm Candy, and this is Half Haunted Chronicles. Picture a quiet hospital room. The lights are low, the body's tired, breathing slows to a rhythm that feels like ticking of a very old clock. But then something happens that medicine can't measure. Eyes focus on empty corners, hands lift to greet someone no one else can see. A soft smile spreads across a face that hasn't smiled in weeks. This isn't confusion. This isn't fear. This isn't pain. It's recognition. Hospital workers around the world call this nearing death awareness, and doctors who once brushed it off as hallucination, including some of the researchers in our resources, eventually realized these visions follow patterns, predictable ones. Patients don't see monsters, they see loved ones, light, angels, or something that looks a lot like home. And the closer death gets, the clearer the visions become. Here are some stories that we carry. Father Mike, the man who saw the welcoming committee. Dr. John Lerma wrote about a priest known as Father Mike who spent his final days in room 212. He was quiet at first, tired but drawn, slipping between sleep and waking. But then it happened. He would raise his eyes toward the ceiling and whisper, "They're here again." "Who?" "Three figures," he said, bright, peaceful, and waiting. Lerma watched as Father Mike lifted his arms toward something only he could see, something that filled him with so much joy he actually laughed during his last hours. He died calmly, still smiling. And the strange part, multiple nurses reported seeing a glow in the room the moment he passed, not metaphorically, not emotionally, a literal brightness visible enough that seasoned medical staff stepped backwards. No machinery malfunctioned, the lights didn't flicker, the room simply changed. Our next story is the angelic nurse, when the visitor isn't human. Another case into the light described a patient who kept asking for the nice nurse with the blonde hair. There was only one problem. No such nurse worked on the floor. Not in staffing records, not in scheduling logs, and not in photographs. But multiple dying patients described her. A calm woman, blonde hair, warm hands, and a soft voice. Patients said she touched their foreheads, told them they weren't alone, and promised that they didn't need to be afraid. Some families said their loved ones looked directly past them, over their shoulders, and smiled at someone no one else could see. When they passed, their expressions were peaceful. Hospice staff eventually gave the mystery visitor a nickname, the angelic nurse. Their next story is the shared death, when two people see the same thing. Pre-death visitors aren't always solitary. In Parting Visions, Dr. Melvin Morris describes a woman sitting beside her dying brother as he exhaled his final breath. Something like a mist rose from his body. Not a vapor, not a heat, not a shade. Before she could speak, another person in the room gasped and pointed at the same drifting form. Two witnesses, one moment, no explanation. The brother's body relaxed. The room felt, according to both, lighter, like a pressure had been lifted. Modern medicine has nothing for that, but end-of-life workers, they've seen it before. Our next story is Jimmy, the boy who didn't leave alone. Parting Visions also tells the story of Jimmy, a 9-year-old dying of heart disease. His parents, his brothers, and hospice nurse Lisbeth were by his side. The moment he died, the room went quiet. Lisbeth drove home afterward, exhausted, emotional, and drained. Then the windshield filled with a vision so vivid she had to pull off the highway. It was Jimmy, smiling, holding the hand of a man made of light, alive in a way he hadn't been for months. She told no one except her husband, but at the funeral, Jimmy's mother pulled her aside. "My husband saw the same thing," she whispered, right after Jimmy died. Two people, two visions, one message. He didn't leave alone. Here are 3 creepy facts to haunt your day. Most hospice workers report the dying stare. Moments before death, the patient will stare into the corner of the room with recognition. Many smiling, some reaching, always in the same direction. Some patients smell flowers no one else can. It's called olfactory hallucination in medical literature, but nurses say it's the scent that appears right before a peaceful death. Clocks often stop at the moment of death. Multiple hospice nurses have reported wall clocks freezing at the exact time the patient passed, then working normally after. When I started digging into these accounts, I expected metaphor, I expected fear, I expected confusion. But what I didn't expect was how gentle these stories are. These are people at the edge of life, people whose bodies are shutting down, yet they describe comfort, love, familiar faces, and guides. Not darkness, not emptiness, something that feels like a hand reaching through the doorway and saying, "It's time. Come home." And here's the thing. Hospice nurses, some of the toughest, most grounded people on this planet, almost say the same thing. Dying people see something and it changes the room when it arrives. Does it prove anything? No. But does it tell us something? Absolutely. Whatever happens at the threshold of death, it isn't random and it isn't meaningless. Before we end tonight's episode, I want to share something personal. It's something I've lived. I was there when my dad took his last breath. I was holding his hand, feeling the warmth fading, feeling the room shift into that strange, heavy quiet that only shows up at the end. And then something happened. A cool breeze shot straight through me, not around me, not across my skin, but through me, upward, soft and fast and certain. No windows were open, no fans, no explanation, and no one else felt it, just me. But in that instant, I knew what it was. My dad leaving his body, brushing past mine on his way out. What I didn't know was that miles away, my mom, who was at a hotel, felt it too. The exact moment my dad died, a scarf fell from the light in her room. No wind, no movement, no reason. My parents divorced when I was 2. They lived separate lives, loved separate lives, and still at that moment he crossed the threshold, he touched both of us. But my family stories don't end there. My Uncle Terry, loud, funny, the kind of man who filled the room just by walking into it, was up the night before he died, laughing, cooking his famous chili, talking like everything was normal. Hours later, he was gone, as if he knew he had one last night to taste joy before the door opened. And then, when my Aunt Ruthie was in hospice, right at the edge between her here and home, she looked toward the corner of her room and saw them, my Uncle Terry and her daughter, both standing there waiting. Her daughter had been gone for decades, Terry gone for years. She wasn't confused. She wasn't dreaming. She smiled and said their names like she had been expecting them. And I swear I could feel the room shift. That warm, thick air again, the kind that means someone has come to walk you through the doorway. These moments, my dad's passing, my mom's sighing, my uncle's last night of laughter, and my aunt's visitors, these are why I believe the threshold is real. Because I've seen it, I've felt it, and my family has lived in that thin space where the living and the dead almost touch. And once you witness that, you can never pretend death is just an ending. Sometimes it's just a reunion. Sometimes it's a guide calling you home. Sometimes it's a breeze that only one person feels. And sometimes it's the people you love waiting in the corner of the room, smiling, ready to walk you the rest of the way. Tonight, we stepped into a quiet space before death. The whispers, the visions, the moments of clarity. Next time, we go deeper because some visions don't happen before death. They happen during it. And those stories are far stranger than anything we've heard so far. Until next time, stay curious and always, always stay haunted.